We're good. We got him patched in. Okay.
Joining us today is the great movie Mantz himself, Scott Mantz. Scotty, how's it going today, brother?
How are you, man? All right. Thanks for that great intro music.
I figured you'd love it. So, Scott, real quick, you and I had actually gotten the chance to meet while we were in New York last month for the Logan premiere and press junket. I had seen you outside of the theater at the bar there, and I just went up to you, said hello, mentioned that I had seen you on like Schmoes, all those kinds of shows on there, and we just struck up a conversation. I wound up talking to you for a couple minutes that time, and then a couple other times throughout the weekend, and you were just the coolest guy, and I asked you to call into our show, and here you are, and you graciously obliged, so thank you for calling in.
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, that was an excellent conversation after an excellent movie.
Yes.
And, listen, we're all connected. We're all connected. Everybody sees each other. We all see each other at these press junkets and press screenings. And, it's such a small little pool when you get us all together. We're sort of spread all over the place in the U.S., but in the end, we're all sort of like popping up on each other's shows, on each other's podcasts, and it's all good for everybody. It's all good. Most importantly, it's all good for the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you think about Logan while we have you here?
Oh, I thought it was great. I really thought James Mangold topped himself because I really liked The Wolverine, the movie that came out in 2013. I think people were kind of mixed on that one because it didn't feel like a superhero movie. But that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, and I don't think Logan really did either.
Movie. It felt like a samurai movie, because it takes place over in Japan. And, at this stage, and especially with Logan, the latest movie, at this stage, these superhero movies, the whole genre has sustained itself now for the last 17 years, starting with the first X-Men in July of 2000. And, like when I was growing up, the Superman movies from the 70s and the 80s came and went. And then, the Batman films, the first wave of Batman films in 89 and throughout the early 90s came and went. But it wasn't until the first X-Men in 2000 that the genre planted its flag and from there evolved. Like you had the X-Men film sort of ran into the Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and then that led into the Dark Knight trilogy, and then those led into the MCU, which is actually unprecedented in Hollywood history what Marvel has done with the MCU. But because they sustained themselves and they keep sort of cranking them out now, the danger is that they start to feel conventional or formulaic. And amazingly, Marvel has really sort of avoided that because Kevin Feige is a friggin' genius. But especially in the case of the Wolverine and now Logan, these movies feel fresh and they feel different because they are different. And I think that's really, really important if the genre is going to stay where it is and continue to evolve. Because otherwise it'll come and go like any other genre, like Westerns or, stuff like that. But I loved Logan, and there have been some nice surprises in recent years, like, last summer, Ant-Man as a movie I did not expect to like at all. And I loved it because it felt like a family movie. It was had a real kid-friendly vibe to it. And I think that it's really important for these films. I love these movies. Very, very excited. I know everyone's excited about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm more excited about Spider-Man Homecoming because Spider-Man has always been my number one favorite comic book character.
Mine as well.
Since I was a little kid. You know what I mean? Like, I've read the comics. I've read them from the late 70s until the mid-90s. And Spider-Man was always my favorite because he was a character that I related to. He's just the blue-collar kid from New York, having problems, can't pay his rent, having a problem really keeping a romantic relationship. And by the way, he's got these powers and doesn't really help him with his personal problems.
Right,
and I just thought that was very relatable. And I thought that the first Amazing Spider-Man directed by Mark Webb was good. I feel like Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a little underrated. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
Oh, I hated it.
And you hated it?
Yeah, sure did.
No, listen, I get it. I'm in the minority on that, and I'm cutting it slack because I just love the character. But I'm real excited about what John Watts has in store for Spider-Man: Homecoming. You know, the stuff they showed at Comic-Con last summer, and definitely the new trailer really has that vibe that he's back in high school, and he's, you know, and I love the stuff with Robert Downey Jr. It's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know, and absolutely the name Homecoming is so fitting, you know, him coming back to the Marvel Universe and being included with all the other Avengers characters. You know, they couldn't have picked a better name, in my opinion.
And, you know, listen, Captain America Civil War last summer, I loved it. It was definitely one of the best movies in the MCU. Ironically, after Captain America: Civil War, Winter Soldier, which I thought was the best. But Spider-Man in that film, Tom Holland's Peter Parker, the stuff in Queens when Tony Stark goes to Peter Parker's apartment to sort of recruit him to the Avengers, I thought that was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, it was really fun.
You know, I think it's, you know, comes out July 7th, and I'm just really, really pumped for it. And you know, I'm also pumped for Thor. The third movie coming out in, I think it's October or November.
November, yeah.
And, you know,
like November 6th.
Listen, of all the movies in the MCU, I feel like the first two Thor movies are the weakest. You know, the first one was okay, but the second one was not very good. But the third one, I mean, I feel it looks like they're gonna shake it up a little bit. I mean, they cut his hair. You know, the cover photo on Entertainment Weekly, you know, but it sounds like they're gonna like sort of go for it, because they really didn't go for it with the first two movies.
And Scott, this is Bill. You know, James Gunn just came out yesterday and just said that he saw the new trailer for Thor and that it is the best Marvel trailer as to date. So, you know, when you have a fellow director in the franchise saying that about a movie, you know, that competes with his own, it's something that, you know, definitely sets the tone for the whole franchise as a whole. And you know, I think we're both excited too, because we're products of the '80s here. So to know that this movie is going to have a little bit of '80s undertones, especially with the fact that we have Tango and Cash, you know, reassembling throughout the franchise, and Guardians. It's just one thing after another that just gives you those nostalgic feels.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And also, by the way, you know, we're talking about pleasant surprises. You know I mentioned Ant-Man being a real pleasant surprise, and I thought that Paul Rudd just like crushed it. It was awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what else was a pleasant surprise? And, you know, and again, you know, just proving just how Marvel really knows what it's doing. Doctor Strange was great.
Yeah,
Scott Derrickson did a great job directing that movie. And, you know, at an age when, you know, fanboys like us are totally jaded with great special effects. Special effects in Doctor Strange were freaking awesome. I mean, I know it looked a little bit like Inception a little bit, but it still was pretty jaw-dropping.
And, you know, that might be one of my favorite Marvel superheroes that has come out to date. That, you know, for a standalone character to do what that movie did, it really is a testament to some of the struggles that they've had with other characters so far.
I agree. I completely agree. I thought that Benedict Cumberbatch was terrific in the film. And again, it was a superhero movie. It's in the MCU, but it was had a more supernatural element to it. And, you know, it did feel a little bit different. And, you know, like, guys, you know, we're in this now. We're watching these movies come out year after year, sometimes a couple of MCU movies a year.
Yeah, at least two usually.
It's pretty amazing, you know. And I think that, like, if you take a step back and you look at the history of movies in the last 120 years.
Right.
So here you have Marvel Studios starting in 2008 with the first Iron Man. And so at the end of that movie, you had the bonus scene with Nick Fury where he says to Tony Stark, "I want you to join the Avengers Initiative," which is like one of the best bonus scenes in movie history. But
agreed.
So over the years, you know, then you have like Captain America, you have Thor, and then it all leads up to the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. Then you have more Captain Americas, a couple more Iron Mans, and then it leads into Avengers 2. So you have like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But if you take a step back and you look at the way Marvel Studios has adopted the model that Marvel Comics did in the 1960s with having the characters pop in and out of each other's comic books.
Yeah.
What they've done as a Hollywood studio is unprecedented. It is really unprecedented, and it is trailblazing. It is revolutionary. I mean, yeah, it's their comic book movies and it's mass entertainment, and that's all fine and dandy and everything. But when we look back, we meaning like film historians and critics and even fans of comic book movies, look back, let's say 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to look back at this period of time, the first 2 decades of the 21st century, at what Marvel Studios has done. And people are going to write books about the way Marvel has changed the game. People are going to they're going to be teaching film classes. I know I'm jumping the gun here, but I feel like people are going to be teaching film classes about the way Marvel sort of rewrote the book in terms of making, marketing, and promoting films. It's really super exciting with people like us who really love these movies anyway, but to sort of like work in the business in some way, shape, or form like we do and cover it, like we're pretty damn lucky.
It's definitely a unique business model that they have, and it's so profitable that it certainly gives them leverage when they want to go to a studio like Sony and say, hey, listen, we have ideas for the Spider-Man character. This is how we'd like to approach it, and to win the business, to have them integrate that character, and it you just know as a competing studio that for the right reason, why wouldn't you let this company do what they know what's best and let them have their share with it? Because it's certainly one that you can't refute that they don't know what they're doing. And I certainly agree with you that 10, 20 years from now, things are going to be said about how they conduct themselves, because 20, 30 years ago, you would only get a comic book movie once every 10 years because nobody wasn't able to, cohesively blend characters into a movie with one another. Nobody was saying, hey, how can we, constructively do this? Now, like you just said, you throw a character in the movie, 2-3 years before they're set to have their own solo movie. So the audience is familiar already with the character, with their persona, and it just sells so much more easily. So I totally agree with you.
I completely agree with that. And when Sony finally sort of waved the flag and surrendered to Marvel Studios, said, okay, guys, Marvel Studios and Disney, all right, Spider-Man is one of the most beloved superhero comic book characters of all time. The last couple of films, like The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012, I mean, it was fine as a standalone movie, but it wasn't different enough from the 2002 movie in terms of its origin to really justify its existence. And like you said, a lot of people did not like the second film, the second Amazing movie with Andrew Garfield. And any character deserves to be saved. It's Spider-Man. And look, we've only seen like a couple minutes of footage between, what they showed at Comic-Con and the new trailer. But it's I feel like sort of integrating him into the MCU and the Avengers, which Spider-Man in the comics sort of dabbled with the Avengers. He was in, then he wasn't, then he dabbled in, he was in for a little bit, and he always worked better as a loner. I mean, he he was going to join the Fantastic Four in the very first issue of Spider-Man, but decided not to when he found out that it didn't pay. He had to pay his bills. Not a lot of people know that, but in terms of all these comic book movies, not just MCU, not just the DC movies, but also the movies produced by or distributed by other studios like Fox with X-Men and Daredevil and Sony with Spider-Man. My number one favorite comic book movie is Spider-Man 2 from 2004, the Tobey Maguire one.
Right,
I feel like that is it is a perfect movie. It is a complete, perfect adaptation of Amazing Spider-Man number 50 from 1967 with that famous red cover that says Spider-Man No More on it. Tobey was a great Peter Parker. It was a coming-of-age movie about a superhero. You know, that last look on Mary Jane's face after Peter Parker swings out of his apartment and she goes, "Go get him, Tiger." And, you know, she's got that look of concern and fades to black. I thought it was a perfect movie, really up there with the first Superman, which is still the gold standard.
And we had Nickelback on that soundtrack too, so that that definitely helped.
That's the first one.
No, that was the second one, wasn't it?
The first one.
Oh, come on, man.
This was actually Scott. Did you watch the latest Schmodown matchup from the other day?
No, I haven't seen it. Which one?
Or it was the team matchup, the Schmoes versus Top 10.
Oh,
from Tuesday.
Broke a win.
Yeah, they did. And that was actually that was the losing question that Ellis had. Which Spider-Man movie did Nickelback do a song for the soundtrack? And he had guessed Spider-Man 2, but it was actually the first Spider-Man. And I had thought that it was Spider-Man 2 as well. So I'm going on IMDb, looking up the soundtrack. I'm like, son of a bitch, it actually was the first one.
Well, how about that? Yeah. Wow. I mean, listen, it's hard to believe. The first Spider-Man, directed by Raimi, is now 15 years old. It came out May of 2002. And I remember when the very first teaser trailer for the first Spider-Man started showing in theaters at the end of the summer of 2001. It was that image of Spider-Man capturing the helicopter by spinning the web in between the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center.
Yeah,
and,
very iconic.
As soon as 9/11 happened, they stopped it, obviously for sentimental or for sensitive reasons. They stopped selling that image. Everybody stopped selling any image that had the World Trade Center in it. But that's how far back Spider-Man goes. And I love the first one. Second one is perfection. Third one is underrated. Again, I'm cutting it slack because I just love the character. But I really have very strong hopes and that Homecoming will be great. But, listen, the summer is kicking off with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and that's going to be awesome. But why can't – I really want DC to get its act together.
Did you see the trailer, Scott, the new Justice League trailer?
Yeah, okay, I'm in. I mean, how do you not be in?
Right.
But they just, they've been stumbling. The Man of Steel, I did not like. I did not like Batman v Superman. I hated Suicide Squad. I think that they're trying so hard to catch up to Marvel that they're sacrificing quality in terms of just putting stuff out there. And,
right.
We're not dummies. We're not just going to take anything. I mean, we want a good movie, and so far DC in terms of establishing a cinematic universe in itself has yet to deliver. Wonder Woman, I hope Wonder Woman kicks ass. She certainly looks like she will. But, who knows? I thought that Suicide Squad was going to be great, and it was a mess.
We all kind of thought that. And you know what, Scott? Sean will testify to this point. I have fallen asleep during every DC movie that has come out in the theaters to date. So every DC
time.
We've gone and seen every DC movie when it's come out on premiere night, and I have fallen asleep during each one of them so far. So, I agree. I'm hoping that Wonder Woman changes the tone for me and keeps me alive and awake during the entire process. But we're not going to find out until the next showing. So hopefully they can grab my attention in this next one.
When I reviewed Man of Steel and I said, I didn't like it. I thought Superman was bland. I got a lot of flack, especially on Twitter and social media, that I was too hung up on the Richard Donner 1978 movie with Christopher Reeve. Well, yeah, I am hung up on that version because that is the gold standard with how you do a superhero movie. First of all, the score by John Williams is, absolutely unforgettable, and
it's right up there with the most iconic scores.
Hal Rudnick, totally iconic. And then you have the way the movie is structured in three parts. You got the stuff on Krypton, which feels very sci-fi. The stuff in Smallville, which feels like a Douglas Sirk movie. And then the stuff in Metropolis, which feels like His Girl Friday. And then Gene Hackman is still one of the best comic book villains, in movie history. The way he played Lex Luthor, he was so awesome. And Christopher Reeve gave not one, but two dynamic performances. One is Clark Kent, bumbling and charming and really sweet, and then completely irresistible as Superman. I always love that scene in Superman 2 when, just to capture just how much Christopher Reeve was so perfect in the role, and what made him just so endearing. The scene when Lois Lane is trapped under the Eiffel Tower, and the cables go off, and the elevator is falling, free fall, and then Superman swings right up under the elevator and stops it, and Lois Lane looks up in shock, and Superman looks at her and says, "I believe this is your floor." I mean, come on. Come on.
Speaking of something else that I know that you're hung up on, you are the champion of promoting La La Land.
I love that movie.
So if anybody who's listening knows you, we know your affinity for the movie. You were saying in our email exchanges, you were at the Oscar ceremony and you got to see that whole debacle unfold right in front of your eyes. Can you walk us through, what was going on during the time and how you were feeling?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question. And before I answer, I have to sort of build it up, because when I first saw La La Land at the Telluride Film Festival, it was Labor Day weekend, last September 2nd, which was a Friday. It was at 2:30 p.m. at the Chuck Jones Theater at the top of the gondola in Telluride. And there was no hype. It hadn't really there was one screening of it overseas at the Venice Film Festival 2 days before. But other than that, no one was really talking about it. There was no hype. I mean, no one had seen it. No one had seen it at all. So when I saw it, there was no hype at all. I didn't know what to expect. I expected nothing except a good movie from Damien Chazelle, who did Whiplash. But when I saw La La Land for the very first time, I did fall in love with this movie for so many reasons. It feels like a throwback to musicals of the 50s, but it's not too much of a throwback. It still feels very current and contemporary. And by and large, I'm really not a big musical person. There have been some exceptions over the years, like Grease and Chicago and Moulin Rouge. But what I liked about La La Land, it's not one musical. It's not one song after another. It's, sporadic. But also when they do the dance numbers, they do them in complete takes, and they show the full frame, full body. There's no zooms and there's no edits.
Yeah, like how they did Les Mis.
You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty daring as a filmmaker to shoot it that way. And I appreciated that. I certainly appreciated it more the second time I saw it, because I was able to look closer to it. And I felt like Damien Chazelle and Justin Hurwitz really nailed the tone of the movie from start to finish. I loved the chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. I thought they were just irresistible. And I've always really just loved Emma Stone. I think that I always felt like, I would see her in anything. I mean, I just really ever since she really broke through with Easy A, which was a teen comedy that transcended the genre because of her performance, I'm like, I'll watch her in anything. I loved her in The Help. I loved her in the Woody Allen movies. I definitely loved her in Birdman. And I thought that she just crushed it as Mia in La La Land, because she had to do a lot more than people really gave her credit for, even though she won the Oscar now, because she had to sing, she had to dance, sometimes at the same time. She had to do drama, she had to do comedy, and she's very funny. She had to be in love, she had to break down, and the feeling, ultimately, then this is what I've really related to being, out here in Los Angeles for 26 years, is that these people met, they're both into their own things, their own dreams, and they help each other, they inspire each other, they elevate each other to go to the next level. But, guys, the very thing that drew them together also broke them up. And I understand that. I've been there. I know the feeling. And doesn't mean you don't love each other, because that look they gave each other at the end of the movie, I mean, they're always going to have that. And they're always going to, love each other because of the time that they had together. And I thought that movie just, nailed all of that. Yeah. So, yes, for the last 6 months, from September 2nd up until the Oscars on the 26th or 24th. And I was not only championing it, but I like back in September when I was doing my rap from Telluride in Toronto. I was like, this is it. This is going to win Best Picture, and it should. And I was like,
and we thought it did.
for 2 minutes and 29 seconds, it did. And like I was like on the air on Access Hollywood saying, this is the one. Wait till you see it when it comes out December 8th. You're going to love it. And I was sort of like, someone said, hey, way to jump on the bandwagon. And my response was, I am the bandwagon.
Yeah, you're driving the bandwagon.
I really believed in the film, and look, I loved Moonlight too. And I was said, well, if Moonlight wins, I'll be perfectly happy to see that win because it's a great movie for different reasons. But by the way, just before I get to the Oscars, just to show you how cool Emma Stone is. So when I saw the film at Telluride on the 2nd, the following week on September 12th in Toronto at the Toronto Film Festival, I was doing interviews, covering premieres for Access Hollywood. So on the 12th, which was a Monday, at the Princess of Wales Theatre in Toronto, they had the premiere for La La Land. Now, the position that we had, it's always like a lottery system. The festival will put you where they decide they want to put you, but miraculously, they put me in the first position on the carpet. So as soon as the talent walked in the door, I was their first interview, and I thought, great, this is the movie I want to be in the first position for. So, Ryan comes in, Damien comes in, then Emma Stone comes in. And I had interviewed her before, especially for the Spider-Man films. So, and she was wearing this pretty yellow dress. She looked just like me in the film. And I said to her on September 12th, this movie is going to connect on the romantic level that Titanic connected. And she was like, whoa, wow, okay, that's like my favorite movie of all time. Thank you. And I hope you're right.
Yeah.
But who knows, So that was September 12th. So then at the Critics' Choice Awards, because I'm a member of the Broadcast Film Critics, they put me at the La La Land table, and I sat right next to Emma Stone. So, we're just like, talking in between commercial breaks. She was super cool, she's very laid back. And then at the SAG Awards, at the end of January, this was like a week and a half after the Oscar nominations. And La La Land was nominated for 14 Oscars, the same number as Titanic. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I called it. I knew it. I knew it was going to connect like Titanic. So at the SAG Awards, Emma Stone's there. She's there with her brother. Her brother Spencer was with her like at all the award shows throughout the season. So she comes up to the podium, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Great. I love it. It's awesome. So I said to her on camera, this is 5 months after the Toronto premiere. I said, do you remember what we talked about in Toronto? And she goes, yes. And I said, what was it? And I thought, oh, shit, like what if she doesn't remember and it's on camera? I don't want to make her look bad. But without missing a beat, guys, she says, you said it would be like Titanic.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, wow. I thought 5 months, she must have done 300 interviews around the world. And she completely, totally, without hesitation, remembered the conversation we had 5 months before in Toronto. I went, you know what? That's cool.
Well, so you just have such a charming personality, Scott, that everybody has to remember you.
Well, listen, I mean, okay, so it's the Oscars, okay? We're at the Oscars, and I was so excited. I've been to the Oscars like 11 times, covering for Access and being inside. And I usually sit like way up at the top, but I'm just happy to be inside. And I always like spend most of the time at the bar on the ground floor because that's where all the action is. That's where all the celebrities come out and hang out during the show. Well, in this particular case, we were sitting in the first mezzanine, which is the balcony right above where the nominees sit. And I was like right in the center. So the seats, guys, they were amazing, like amazing. So I was like, okay, if I was going to have these kind of seats at any Oscar show where, Moonlight, La La Land, and Arrival were all nominated for so many awards, this is the one because I loved Arrival too. So then let's just cut to the chase, end of the show. Okay. Now, I mean, just everywhere, like whether it's Access or Headline News, CNN, some of the other local LA stations here, I was saying, this is it. This is the one. It's going to win Best Picture. It's the moment of truth. Okay. Faye Dunaway, Warren Beatty come walking out. It's a Bonnie and Clyde reunion. So from where I was sitting, he opens up the envelope and he's looking at the card and he's not saying the winner. So I sat forward in my chair and I shook my head and I smiled and I went, come on, Warren, don't keep us in suspense. A couple of people turned around and looked at me like, yeah, he's really playing this out. So then Faye Dunaway goes, La La Land. And I went, yeah, woohoo. And like everyone's like looking around like, wow, what's wrong with this guy? So then I took a selfie emoji with a big happy face, big smile, put it on Twitter. It said, La La Land Best Picture winner emoji. And then I hear a couple of stagehands who were not mic'd. They did not have their headsets on or anything. So people at home who were watching it on TV anywhere didn't hear what people in attendance heard. They were like, no, wait. So for a split second, I looked up and I went, uh-oh. Now, it all happened very fast, but in a split second, guys, I thought someone was rushing the stage to crash the Oscars. Because after all the, political upheaval that we had, during the election and after the election, if anybody was going to make a statement, that was the time.
Yeah.
Because it was Best Picture. It was the end of the night. Everyone was watching. And I thought that somebody was going to crash the Oscars. And then, like almost immediately, like the third producer from La La Land, steps up to the mic and says, I want to thank my wife. And by the way, we lost. And I went, what? So then Jordan Harwitz, the guy who gave the first speech, he goes, no, there's been a mistake. Moonlight is the winner. And everybody in the audience, we're looking around at each other like, what, is this a joke? And he literally says at that moment, this is not a joke. Seriously, Moonlight, you win. And he holds up the envelope to the camera. The camera zooms in. It says Moonlight. And suddenly, it's like craziness. Like everybody's like crazy and like in shock, and they come up to the stage and I'm sitting there going like, first thing I did was I deleted my tweet with the happy emoji. I took another selfie, this one with a totally confused look on my face. I'm like, what the F just happened? I posted that instead. And that got retweeted a few times. But so then, like, Warren Beatty is like, I wasn't trying to be funny. And Jimmy Kimmel makes a few jokes. And while, the Moonlight producer, Barry Jenkins, the director, he didn't get to give the speech that he wanted to give, but they won, and then that was it. So that's the last part of the show, and everybody's leaving, and everybody's filing out of Dolby Theater, and I'm like walking,
still sitting in your seat,
and like totally in a daze. I had to step out of the crowd, and I like sort of leaned against the wall of the theater, and I went, "What happened?"
I think everybody thought that, you're riding high on those emotions, and then a mishap like that occurs. You don't know if it's staged or if it's real or what the feels are.
Well, it was the biggest moment in Oscar history. I mean, that much is for sure. And I got to tell you, even up until that moment, before that even happened, I thought the show was great. I thought Jimmy Kimmel was great. I thought the opening number with Justin Timberlake was awesome. Viola Davis's acceptance speech was great. And I went, and the 3.5 hours really flew by, which usually they don't. And I just thought, well, this is a great show. And then that happened. So I went to the Lionsgate party, which, Lionsgate produced La La Land. And, some of the executives and publicists there, they knew that I was very much a champion of the film. And like one of the publicists was like, you're the first person I thought of when all that went down.
Right, yeah.
And, I saw Damien Chazelle a little later that night at that party, and he gave me a big hug, and he was like, listen, it's all good. It was a great night. And he was like, thank you for all of your support. We really were beyond grateful, and we couldn't have done it without you. I mean, it was like really nice the way they were all like they knew who I was, because I had interviewed them, and I was
Sure, yeah.
everywhere on Access and other shows and on social media, just pushing the hell out of it. But when I woke up the next morning and I kept watching the playback on my DVR, then it hit me. And this was something I wasn't able to see, from where the stage was, or much less appreciate, because I was in freaking shock. But what immediately struck me was, so it happened. And the way Jordan Horowitz was like, "No, guys, you win. You win." And he was like, "Wow, it was actually really cool." Like, he was it was a class act, the way he just like he didn't throw a fit. I mean, he didn't look upset. He was like, "No, guys, you win." And then you have all that diversity on the stage. You had the mostly white producers of La La Land, the mostly black producers of Moonlight, and they're all hugging each other, and they're all like the show of unity and grace. And
yeah, if anything, I mean, it was something so unprecedented, but it really did bring everybody together in that tumultuous sense at the same time, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing, and I just really felt like, after all the unrest, the political unrest, with the Trump versus Clinton, and when the Oscars turned into a racial thing, because it was after 2 years of Oscars so white among the acting nominees, and
sure,
and it just was a great moment, like, of all the people in the world to show unity and grace. The most self-absorbed town, full of the most shallow people, Hollywood. They really showed a tremendous amount of unity, and I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think that was like, it went from being the biggest blunder in Oscar history to one of the finest moments in Hollywood. And the great thing about it is this: let's say Moonlight won without all that fanfare, or without all the drama. Let's say La La Land actually won. Who knows? In 5 years, if you ask just average Joe Blow moviegoer, "Hey, what won Best Picture for 2016?" they probably wouldn't remember, or if they did, they'd have to really think about it.
Yeah, they'll remember now.
after this moment, like, no one is ever going to forget that Moonlight won, and they're going to remember both of those films, Moonlight and La La Land, in the same breath for decades.
Sure.
Now here's the thing, guys. So it turned out to be a great moment and all that. Just something to consider. What if it had been the other way around?
Yeah, I mean, the way that, like you were saying, with all the any kind of racial tension or anything like that, I mean, that could be definitely construed in that kind of way.
That would have been awful.
Yeah.
I would have been like, "I am out of here." I would have ran out of there.
Sure.
But no, it all happened the right way, and it was like a perfect storm of things, because it all came down to a blunder by one of the accountants on the side of the stage who handed them the wrong envelope. He handed them the envelope for the previous award winner, and that was Best Actress for Emma Stone for La La Land. So when Faye Dunaway saw the card and said La La Land, that's what she read. But, like, what if, let's say, Isabelle Huppert actually won Best Actress instead of Emma Stone? Then that means that Lauren and Faye would have had the envelope, and it would have said Isabelle Huppert for Elle. Well, Elle wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. So if that's the card that they were looking at, that definitely would have been a bigger tip-off that something was wrong. And they would have said, "I think we have the wrong envelope," because there's no way that Elle is Best Picture winner. But and you can tell when they open the envelope that Warren Beatty is looking at the card, and he's like,
yeah,
wait a minute.
And you got to wonder, who was just in charge of everything that was going on to, make such a terrible mistake. But, while we have you just for another second, we wanted to thank you so much for calling in. And we know that you are a Philly guy. So if you ever find yourself back home again, definitely get a hold of us. Maybe we can have you in the studio. I feel like we could talk to you all day long.
I would love that. That would be great. And thanks for having me on. It was
Anytime,
really a lot of fun. Keep up the great work, fellas.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Scott.
for calling
We
in.
appreciate
Scott
you joining
Mantz,
us.
everybody check him out on Access Hollywood, competing in the Movie Trivia Schmodown as well. Thank you so much for calling in, Scott.
All right. Have a great day, fellas.
You
So long.
too.